What's going on, everyone? Today we're doing our second attempt at using Thiol Libre yeast. We're going to make a Hazy IPA. Hopefully it's going to be the best Hazy IPA we've ever made. You know why? Because we have a secret weapon this time. Phantasm.
Party time brews. This song ain't no good, but we got nothing to lose.
So we're going to get this going right away. The name of the beer is Biggest Phan. It's a hazy 6.3%, hopefully juicy IPA. Hopefully the Phantasm is going to release all them bound thiols. Let's see what the recipe is. Well, I guess it's right here. So we have a grist. The grist consists of 2.5 kilograms of pale malt, 2 kilograms of Pilsner, 1 kilogram of flaked oats, and 1 kilogram of wheat. Should be nice and hazy, should be nice and tasty. And I'm also throwing in some rice hulls there, about 150 grams of them to make sure she lauters nicely. But I guess you want to know what we're using for the hops. So the first thing we're doing, we're actually using quite a few Cascades in this one. We have 115 grams or so of Cascade in order to use for the mash hopping. Mash hopping is something they recommend for a thiol releasing yeast, so I'm going to try it. Don't ask me the chemistry. Somebody might know. Comment below.
For the purpose of a thiol releasing yeast, mash hopping is used in order to use the enzymes in barley which may facilitate the conversion of glutathione-bound thiols into cysteine-bound thiols, which can result in stronger thiol release and possibly better aroma and flavor.
Next, for no super particular reason, because it's probably bitter enough anyway, we're just going to put 15 grams of Cascade in there to just add a few extra IBUs to the bitterness at the 60-minute mark. Followed by that, we got these delicious Citras. They already have the thiol released in them, that's why they smell so good. Don't quote me on that.
Extra, read all about it. James from Party Time Brewing says they already have the thiol released in them. That's why they smell so good.
But everyone loves Citra, so we're going with 92 grams of Citra at the 20-minute for aroma. And when I say 20-minute, I mean 20-minute hop stand. And we're going to throw another 92 grams of Cascade in there for the hop stand as well. In past batches of this, I had kind of used the Galaxies or the Simcoes, but with the thiol releasing yeast, Cascade has a bunch of bound thiols, so I'm curious to see how juicy we can make it with just using Cascade and Citra. But along with that, you want to know when we're going to be using the Phantasm. Phantasm, recommended to throw in at the Whirlpool. There are many different places you can use it, many different places you can try it. A lot of people have been trying the Whirlpool. I'm going to try the Whirlpool, but it's something you definitely should play around with. The only problem is this stuff's 2.5 ounces from More Beer or Northern Brewer, and it was about $12.99. So it's not the cheapest stuff. I'm just going to use that amount there, 71 grams, and see what happens. Finally, for that yeast, we're looking at the Thiol Libre yeast. Tried it before, it turned out to be a little bit on the phenolic side. This time I got some temperature control, and we're going to try to get her in the 18 degrees fermenting area, so we're not going to get any of those phenols, if that's what it was before. And I guess we'll throw in some yeast nutrient, because why not? And I actually bought an oxygenation wand, so I'm going to try to oxygenate this wort for the first time ever. So a lot of different factors coming into this one. Probably won't be able to just attribute it straight to the thiol if it's a great beer, but I just want to make a great beer.
So we started to make a great beer. I mashed in, gave it a stir, set up the Grainfather, and then I went with a 60-minute mash. Well, I at least planned for a 60-minute mash, and then I pulled out.
And with this, I did end up mashing about an hour and a half. Had to go run and get some oxygen. So I let her go for a little longer than I planned, but can't hurt. It's just barely at the end of the mash, and I have managed to mess this up royally already. I forgot about the mash hopping. 115 grams were supposed to go in there. So I'm going to do the next best thing. We're going to extend this mash. It's only at about 70, so it'll still cool down, but I'm going to put some hops in a bag, and we're going to steep them in there for another half hour, and then we will get back to the boil. These are only going to go in for about half an hour at 70 degrees, or between 65 and 70. I'm letting it cool down to 65. So we'll see if that does anything. Let me know in the comments below if you know that will mess up the mash hoppiness. The one thing it won't do is screw up the grain to be able to use for animals. So I guess that's a bonus, but it adds a lot of time. I should have mash hopped. Planned on it, but didn't.
So I kind of did a bastardization of mash hopping and first water hopping, only I removed the hop bag before heating it up. It came to a boil, and I added my small Magnum edition and then measured the Phantasm just to see if I got what I paid for. I did.
So we got some Phantasm. Let's see what it tastes like. Not what I was expecting. It's very dull, but it's kind of grapey. Basically, what Phantasm is just crushed Sauvignon Blanc grape skins. It is a byproduct of the winemaking process, and these are from the Marlborough region in New Zealand. Phantasm is a really hard thing to come by, and quite happy the Northern Brewer managed to get some in stock. even though it is at $12 or $13 an ounce, or 2.5 ounces, which is like 17 Canadian. Goddamn. But you basically just put these bad boys in at the Whirlpool, and there's supposed to be a lot of bound thiols in there, which can be unlocked with a thiol releasing yeast. So should make it extra fruity, kind of supposed to give you like an overripe fruit smell or taste. And with juices, we can always ask for more. May I have some more? Okay, so for the Whirlpool, I'm gonna put all the hops in a hop bag. It'll give it a little more surface area touch there. I'll just tie this nice and loosely, one of them packed tight, because I do have about 180 grams of hops going in there, which was 92 grams of Citra and 92 grams of the Cascade. I'm also gonna dump in the Phantasm at this point. Citra, Cascade, and Phantasm I'm gonna leave loose because I wanna keep as much in there to release the thiols.
I plopped it in, stirred it up, threw in the Phantasm, and then left it for about 20 minutes in the Whirlpool. I took out the hop bag and then added the yeast to the fermenter and chilled the wort down to about 20 degrees.
Okay, so for the first time ever, I'm gonna be oxygenating this wort. Just got me a tank of oxygen and an oxygen wand, so let's have at it. It basically says stick it in near the bottom, get it until there's a nice layer of bubbles coming out. So I guess I'll hold it kind of on my side so I can control the air. And we'll take a look. There's some bubbles, that looks good. And just want you to kind of stir for 40 seconds. Okay, Google, set timer for 40 seconds. And drop the rat pill in there. Plop. And close that off. So the next thing we're gonna be doing is 3 days, we'll be giving it a dry hop. I plan on doing 2, but I'm going camping, so 3 days we'll dry hop it. So last time I used the Thiol Libre, I think I may have fermented a little bit hot, so came out potentially a little bit phenolic, which is one of the characteristics that Escarpment says can happen if you ferment it a bit hot. I thought it was around 20 degrees, but this time we're gonna make sure we are below 20. I'm gonna try to keep it in around 17 or 18 degrees, and I'm gonna do that with the new coil I installed in the all-rounder. I'm gonna try it with the glycol system. Haven't had the all-rounder set up for temperature control, so really looking forward to giving this a shot. I still don't have my thermal well, so basically just gonna tape the thermometer or Inkbird to the side and hope that works. But either way, looking forward to giving this a shot, and hopefully we can keep the temperatures down good, and we'll just take a look at the fermentation profile and see how she worked.
3 days later, I dry hopped it, but as you can see, not with any fancy oxygen preventing methods. Since it was still in active fermentation, a bit of oxygen shouldn't hurt anything, and the leftover will purge out the spun-in valve as fermentation finishes. And here's the fermentation profile. You can see in the blue the chiller did a great job of keeping the wort within a degree or 2. You can see where I turned off the glycol for a day by accident, but then cold crashed it down to about 4 degrees. 4 degrees was about the lowest I could get with this system for cold crashing. The whole thing fermented out in about 10 days, and I carbed it up with the Blickman Quick Carb.
Well, there you have it. I made another beer. This time I got a chance to use the Phantasm, and I think it's going to turn out pretty good. I had a little snippet of it when it first came out of the fermenter, and it smelled good. Had a little bit of the phenolic taste, which is possibly due to the Pilsner malt that I put in it. Don't put the Pilsner malt, just use all 2-row. And as well, during the fermentation, I did accidentally turn off the glycol chiller and kind of let it, temperature rose and came back down again. So don't do that. I was worried that I'd have to end up calling this one, instead of biggest fan, biggest fuck up, but you know what? I think it's gonna turn out all right. And without further ado, here is what it looks like. It's a beer. Decent head on it. I carbonated it quite well with the quick carb. And if you take a look at the color, it's not quite as orangey greatness as I thought. I don't know if that's a little bit due to possibly oxidization due to some bad practices, or the Phantasm itself is kind of that color. So maybe that's giving it a little bit there. I'm kind of guessing it might be possibly oxidized, but we'll have a taste in a second. But yeah, like I said, there we go. It is a hazy, which means it's not clear. It didn't fall clear, so the grist I used worked quite well with that. The head seems quite decent on that. Got a few big bubbles in there, which means my glass might have not been as clean as I thought it was. But either way, I guess it's time to go in for a whiff. Smells great, smells fruity, and that's pretty much the same review for smell you'll always get from me. Might as well go in for the taste. Right off the bat, really good. It has a deep fruity taste, which potentially is something to do with the thiols being released, or might just be due to a good hop load on there. Lots of Citra and that kind of goodness. But happily, I'm not getting any of the phenolic flavors that I thought it would with the little quick taste off of the fermenter. It has been sitting for about 2 or 3 weeks, so maybe some of that settled out, or maybe the little bit of yeast was able to kind of kill off whatever was left in there. But either way, she tastes good. I definitely recommend it. It's not nearly phenolic as the one that was up in this thing here. I guess that's the side. It might be that side, but one here. The last time I used Thiol Libre, it ended up a lot more phenolic, which possibly due with the fact that I still use the Pilsner malt, and I also didn't temperature control it as well. The temperature controller in the all-rounder ended up working pretty good, and I was able to keep it at about 18 degrees pretty much the whole time, and then cold crash it down to 4 degrees for actually quite a long time before I ended up kegging it. I could get a little bit more into detail on this. Actually, I couldn't, but the big thing is, you want to know? Yeah, I'd buy that for $1. That's a pretty good beer, and I will definitely make it again. And I say make it again, but I'll definitely make it again with the same recipe, minus the Phantasm. I want to try it without the Phantasm to see if it actually added anything. I'm not overly excited about what it had to add, especially for the dollar value, but it definitely added something to it, and it's better than the last time I used the Thiol Libre. Next time, to do this better, like I said, get rid of the Pilsner malt. You're not supposed to have Pilsner malt with a thiol releasing yeast, or at least the Escarpment Labs Thiol Libre. I do a proper mash hopping with it, because you saw I just kind of added the hops after I took the grain out, but I got rid of the hops from the bag, so it's kind of like mash hopping, but not really. And other than that, the hop load was pretty good, so yeah, do it again, maybe without the Phantasm, just to see how I can do a comparison. And if I can do it soon enough, maybe I'll have one side by side to the other, assuming it didn't oxidize this, which kind of looks oxidized, so I don't know, don't taste it, but looks it either way. Thanks for watching. There are actually other videos I have, like this one, or you could subscribe, but cheers.